Hello, this is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. This is episode 118, January 27, 2020. I want to first talk about Kobe Bryant passing away. Very sad that him and his daughter in a helicopter crash outside of Los Angeles that happened yesterday. It really kind of shocked the world, Kobe Bryant being such an amazing basketball player. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this crash. It was very sad, and pray for his family. Him and his daughter and I think 7 others, so a total of 9 people were killed in this helicopter crash, and they had taken off from, I think it was LAX, and they were flying up the 101. Oh, they actually, I'm sorry. They took off from John Wayne Airport, that's right, at SNA in Orange County. And they were flying up the 101. There was fog, a lot of fog in the area. And they were flying VFR, which is visual flight rules. So the pilot was not using the instrumentation on the helicopter to figure out where he is and the artificial horizon, to make sure everything's okay with the plane. So, of course, pilots are trained to be able to fly in clouds using the instruments only. They don't have to see out the window to fly the plane. They can look at the instruments and fly the plane. Well, apparently there was fog in the area, and he was supposed to be a VFR. And then there was a report that the traffic control told him that he was too low. And so now these all general aviation are supposed to have these ADS-B data recorders, and it sends out information. And so before they crashed, the ground speed, the airspeed increased, and then vertical speed decreased, and altitude slowly decreased. So it looks like, they're going to investigate this, but it looks like the helicopter crashed right into a mountain. So they took off from Fort Wayne. They did some circles around Glendale, like maybe around Dodger Stadium. It looked like they were sightseeing. And they slowed down during that part of their 40-minute trip. And then they sped up and were going up the 101. And then veered off the 101, that valley, and right into the mountains. And it looks like they crashed right into a mountain. This helicopter was owned by Island Express Helicopters. This is a very small company. It looks like they own 3 of these Sikorsky S-76 helicopters. This is a $13 million helicopter, and it looks like this helicopter was bought by the state of Illinois, and the governor flew in this, and then it was sold to IX Helicopters, Island Express Helicopters. I read one report that Kobe Bryant had bought the helicopter and then he was renting it. But anyhow, this helicopter was bought for $500,000, which is not very much. So this is an older helicopter, and from its new value of $13 million, it was purchased, from what I read, at $500,000, which is very low. A low price for a fancy helicopter like this. And then this was a very small helicopter organization that would fly charters out to Catalina Island. The pilot, his name is Ara Zobayan, and he was a 50-year-old person from Armenian descent, and apparently living in an apartment close by. Or actually, I think it was he was living in Huntington Beach. So it's very sad. There's already reports that I'm reading about. They're looking at, here's an LA Times article. The probe of Kobe Bryant crash will probably focus on fog, possible mechanical problems, experts say. You know, it is still truly amazing when a plane crashes or helicopter crashes, how we immediately look to mechanical error. And yet, as I've said with the 737 MAX crashes, that like 95% of the time, or over 90% of the time, it is not mechanical problems, but it is human error. Literally, the pilot is the most dangerous person in the aircraft. And so I'm a big proponent of computers flying planes, because computers rarely ever make a mistake. As a matter of fact, they pretty much never make a mistake. And so when you have, when you're flying in a helicopter, which is inherently very unstable, it is very difficult to fly a helicopter. You've got the rotor spinning on the top, and it wants to force the whole aircraft to swirl around. That's why the little propeller on the back, that stabilizes the helicopter, and if that breaks, then the thing will spin around. Okay, you die. And so it's very difficult to fly a helicopter. You've got the stick, and then you have this thing down here, you got this throttle, and then you move that back and forth. Very, very difficult. I've read people who've learned how to fly helicopters, and they talk about how difficult it is. My brother's a pilot. I've flown his planes before. I've flown a medical airlift plane before, twin engine, just a little bit in the air. Very easy. You can pretty much let go of all the controls and the plane will just fly itself. Oh, you let go of controls in a helicopter, the thing will crash. So it's very difficult. These helicopter flights in Hawaii are very difficult. They crash all the time. So helicopter flying is a lot more dangerous than people think. And so if you're ever flying in a helicopter, make sure the pilot really knows what he's doing, and it's not a rinky-dink operation. It's very dangerous. So it'll be interesting to see what more we can learn about the crash. But that's about all I've been able to research about that. We'll find out more. It'll be a much better with this personal travel with helicopters. You can see the huge advantages of being able to take off in a really small area, be able to land in a small area. These quadcopters, like these drones, actually fly by themselves. They're inherently very stable, and you can see with the redundancy and with computers flying quadcopters, you can see how the safety of these vehicles can definitely improve a tremendous amount. So we'll learn more about that as things go on. I wanted to talk about Donald Trump and the impeachment trial. It continues. The Republicans today, Monday, are going to be able to continue to make their case that on these two charges that there is no evidence that these are impeachable offenses. And I think that's going to be really fairly easy to prove. Of course, what we do, we get the drip, drip, drip from the Democrats. We saw this in the Kavanaugh hearing. The Lev Parnas thing is such a joke, how he recorded that meeting where Donald Trump was. And so this guy is completely discredited. So he's trying to, he's in big trouble. It looks like he's going to jail. And so it looks like he's trying to use this to try to get out of that. It's interesting to know if you are being tried in court for something, and then and if people want you to testify and they know that you've got other charges pending, they won't trust anything that you say, because they know whatever you might be saying is trying to get out of the other case. And so the Lev Parnas thing is already blown over. And yet now the Democrats, they keep holding their ammunition. The Lev Parnas thing, remember, that was revealed in late November. Of course, the Democrats just wait to reveal it now to make it look like we've got more of a case. We need witnesses. We need to drag this on. We need to do a fishing expedition. So the latest foot to drop, it's in a bombshell. This is another bombshell story, is John Bolton. And John Bolton has got this book coming out, and he says that there's this quid pro quo, that Donald was going to hold up the aid to the Ukraine pending this investigation of Joe Biden. Donald Trump responds, I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied, and never is capitalized. was tied, all caps, tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. In fact, he never complained about this at the time of his first public termination. If John Bolton said this, it was only to sell a book. With that being said, the transcripts of my calls with President Zelensky are all the proof that is needed, in addition to the fact that President Zelensky and the foreign minister of Ukraine said there was no pressure, no problems. Additionally, I met with President Zelensky at the United Nations. Democrats said I never met, and released the military aid to Ukraine without any conditions of investigations. I'm far ahead of schedule. I also allowed Ukraine to purchase Javelin anti-tank missiles. My administration has done far more than previous administrations. Oh, that's so true. Okay, so the first article is abuse of power. There's no evidence that Donald did anything wrong. Okay, even if John Bolton is right and that Donald was going to withhold funding, for investigating all this criminality from from Joe Biden, that still would not be abuse of power, would not be to the level of impeachment. But anyhow, this is just more the Democrats continue to drip, and try to attack Donald. It's a never-ending investigation. The evidence just keeps piling in. They've got mountains of hearsay. They've got mountains of dirt on Donald. All these people who hate Donald Trump, and they're going to just continually harass him. It's really frustrating when you're on the other side. And I hope the next president of the United States does not have to suffer this. But anyhow, it's politics, and it's the way it goes. And we're winning. And you know how I know we're winning? Oh, this Jeff Toobin comment was just hilarious when he said the president was winning here. I do watch CNN, and this was on, I can't remember when this was, Thursday or Friday. Actually, this was Saturday. I think this was Saturday. And CNN's chief legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin, so he said, the president's winning here. The Republicans really just need to shut up. There's really not much they have to say. There's no case here. The Democrats are trying to make this look like impeachable offenses, and there's no evidence of that. But of course, we got Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney just has to be difficult. He says it's very likely I'll be in favor of witnesses in Trump's impeachment trial. I mean, he doesn't give any reasons why, and he's not going to say anything about what he thought about the Republicans' lawyers on Saturday in less than 2 hours defending Donald Trump and making their case that there is no case. So it's amazing. So the Democrats use almost all of their 24 hours. On and on and on. They make it sound so complicated. They bring in all of these unrelated factors. In a court of law, those things would all be thrown out. It's just complete distraction. But the Republicans are very succinct, okay, that there's no evidence of wrongdoing, that the transcripts prove that Donald was just talking to the Ukrainians, looking into corruption, nothing wrong there, that the funds were not linked in any way. So all these accusations that the Democrats are making is not even true. They are not even true. And so this will be proved out. But of course, Mitt Romney needs to be difficult, and he's playing the spoiler here. He loves all the attention that he gets. He's, personally just hates Donald Trump so much. It's just so aggravating and frustrating. But totally embarrassed. He's a member of my faith, and it's just embarrassing. I'm reminded of Jurassic Park. I think that one guy goes, I really don't like that man. I feel that way about Mitt Romney. He's so disingenuous and being so unfair to Donald Trump. But whatever. I don't know if you guys saw this story of Mike Pompeo, and he's being interviewed by an NPR reporter. And then Mike Pompeo, made a statement. NPR reporter Mary Louise Kelly lied to me twice, first last month in setting up our interview, and went again yesterday in agreeing to have our post-interview conversation off the record. It is shameful that this reporter chose to violate the basic rules of journalism and decency. This is another example of how unhinged the media has become in its quest to hurt President Trump and this administration. It is no wonder that the American people distrust many in the media when they so consistently demonstrate their agenda and their absence of integrity. It is worth noting that Bangladesh is not Ukraine. Her story is that he was cussing and swearing at me, and that he wanted me to point to this map, and he said, "Where is the Ukraine? Can you even point it out on a map?" And she said, "Yes." And she said, "I point right to the Ukraine," but he said I pointed to Bangladesh, and he was using the F word, and, this is really bad. Anyhow, well, we all know NPR, Barry Obama, that's his favorite network is NPR. And speaking of him, Charlie Kirk had a tweet about the Obamas. The Obamas are worth over $135 million. Last year, they cost taxpayers $1.1 million. He could give 2 speeches on Wall Street at his rate of $1.2 million each and take the cost off the taxpayers for a whole year. But he'd rather the taxpayers subsidize his lifestyle. Shameful. So, of course, we're paying for the Secret Service to protect the Obamas. And that's fine. I've got no problems with that. But when the Obamas use, the fortune and fame of the presidency and make all of this money, that would be such a neat gesture. It would be a neat gesture if they wanted to pay for their own security. That would be really cool. I think it's neat that Donald Trump, that he does donate his salary. Well, yes, he's a billionaire, and not everyone can do that. But I think that's a really neat gesture. And for the Obamas, to give some back to the taxpayer would be a neat gesture. I always felt like when Obama, when he was president, he was trying to scale back things and the debt, and that he was asking everyone else to make cutbacks, and he's raising our taxes and trying to make cuts in the government, but that he never even gave lip service to him spending less as president of the United States, maybe going on fewer trips or taking a smaller plane or, whatever. Any kind of lip service to any kind of economizing on the executive end. I never even saw anything from that. I thought that by leading by example, that would have been really, really awesome. But that didn't happen. My last story I wanted to cover is that Dennis Prager has a great article at the Daily Wire, Why Are So Many People Unhappy? It's a 2-part series, and he talks about how the suicide rates are up, and he talks about a Reuters health report in 2019, suicidal thinking, severe depression, and rates of self-injury among U.S. college students more than doubled over the last decade. And so there's all kinds of, Theresa May in Britain even appointed a minister of loneliness. And so it says like people are unhappier, and yet we've got better health and better health care and better housing and more education and more money. And so Dennis Prager is asking the question, why? What is going on? He says there are a number of reasons, including use of illicit drugs and prescription drug abuse and less human interaction because of constant cell phone use are truly widely offered valid explanation. Less valid explanations includes competition, grades, anxiety, capitalism, and income inequality. And then there are young people's fears that because of global warming, they have a bleak and perhaps no future. Okay, so what Dennis Prager makes the argument about values. He says America and much of the rest of the West, but I will confine my discussion to America, was founded on 2 sets of values, Judeo-Christian and American. This combination created the freest, most opportunity-giving, most affluent country in world history. This is not chauvinism, it is fact. and it was regarded as such throughout the world. This is why France gave America, and only America, the Statue of Liberty. That's why people from every country on earth so wanted to immigrate to America and still do. Chief among American values was keeping government as small as possible. This enabled non-government institutions, Aquinas International, Rotary International, Lions Club International, book clubs, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, bowling leagues, music societies, and of course churches to provide Americans with friends and to provide the neediest Americans with help. But as government has gotten ever larger, many of these non-government groups have dwindled in number or simply disappeared. I've talked about how the left destroyed the Boy Scouts and then they put anything in its place. No, the left just loves destroying things. Destroy our culture. That's what conservative is, that we want to conserve these values. Dennis goes on, another set of values is what is referred to as middle class or bourgeoisie values. These include getting married before one has a child, making a family, getting a job to be self-sustaining and sustain one's family, self-discipline, delayed gratification, and patriotism. All of these have been under attack by American elites and with the following results. This data is just staggering. 1 in 5 young Americans has no contact with his or her father, not including fathers who have died. Now listen to this. In 2011, 72% of black children were born to unmarried mothers. In 1965, that was 24%. So it went from 24% of black children were born to unmarried mothers in 1965 to 72% in 2011. And then the numbers for white children born to unmarried women, in 1965, it was 3.1%. And then that went up to 29% in 2012. So the increase in children born to unmarried women is just absolutely staggering here in just like 50 years within my lifetime. I was born in 1963. The majority of births to millennials are to unmarried women. Yet according to a 2018 Cigna study, single parents are generally the loneliest Americans. Marriage and family are the single greatest sources of happiness for most people. Yet the percentage of American adults who have never been married is at a historic high. More Americans than ever will not get married, or they will marry so late they will not have children. In 1960, 9% of blacks ages 25 and older have never been married. In 2012, it was nearly 40%. And then he talks about the biggest problem. And so he's going to go on and talk about probably culture, and he's going to probably talk about atheism. I bet I'll share that with you when it comes out. But how many people the atheism is on the rise in America? And think about living a life without any hope for a better future. I've talked about that before. I've been reading, in closing, I've been reading Killing Jesus. So this is the book by Bill O'Reilly, and Dugard is the other author. I'm about halfway through it. There are things in it that I don't like so much, but it gives you a great historical background of the life and times of Jesus Christ. Now, this book is coming from like a secular look at Christ and what he did. And of course, the stories of Christ and the miracles that he performed is extremely faith promoting to me. And so I'll give you a final book for review when I'm done. You guys, thank you so much for listening. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. Subscribe on iTunes or watch at I post it on the Philip Koerper Show on YouTube. You guys have a great day. See you. Bye.